Good afternoon and welcome to Music Biz Buzz, your source for all things music business, only here on 88.7 FM Radio Hofstra University. I'm your host, Katie Egan, and today I am joined with Angel Martinez, Senior Director of Marketing at Asylum Records, a division of Warner Music Group. The label serves as current and former artists' home, including Ed Sheeran, Joni Mitchell, Gucci Mane, Sada Baby, and the Eagles. He's here to talk to us today a little bit about his experience working in the music industry, as well as how his roles of marketing have shifted once the COVID-19 pandemic started. Angel, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm glad it's Friday.
I'm glad it's Friday as well. Thank you for coming on to the show.
It's amazing how you just turned it on. Like, that's so cool. Like, we were having like a cool, relaxed conversation, then you just like, boom, in action.
Video mode.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I can't complain. I mean, we can, and I tell people, but it's like there's nothing to complain about right now.
Right. It's a good outlook to have, especially during this chaotic time right now.
Trying to stay positive every day.
For sure. So why don't you first tell us a little bit about how you got your start in the music industry? What were some of your first jobs and internships?
Yeah, so my journey is a long and extensive one, so I won't go into everything. I'll just sift through it. So initially, I applied for an internship at Sony while I was at Fordham University, and that internship turned into a rejection letter that was sent to me. And after the letter was sent, I got all sad and depressed. My mom was like, "No, it's gonna be all right. You know, you get the motherly support. I'm the last child in the house." So lo and behold, I get a call from Sony about coming into the office for an interview. And it was just like confusing at that time because you get a letter that rejects you and then you get a call saying come in for an interview. So when I did the interview, I was extremely early. I think I was like 2-3 hours early. The guy felt bad for me that I was there all that time waiting, and he pretty much just gave me the position, and the position itself was in the IT department. So I did a semester of work at Sony in the IT department. Then I realized that it wasn't for me. I wanted something more hands-on on the music side. I definitely wanted to balance technology because that was what my degree was. But I noticed that the only way to do that was later on as my years progressed, because technology when it comes to digital marketing wasn't something that was a part of the music industry back then. So long story short, I shifted over from the IT department at Sony, went over to the radio promotions department for the following semester, and then the semester after that, I got a internship at Interscope Records in the A&R department. So at this point, I'm just like trying to figure everything out, trying to see where I can land and what roles best fit me. And then shortly after being there in the A&R department, I get transferred over to the marketing department and I get a full-time position there. Lo and behold, the position itself was only available for 3 months because my boss at the time left to another company. So I was laid off. Then I was just trying to figure out what I was gonna do next, and I was like, okay, I know I need to go back to interning because I don't have enough experience to get a job at this point in the marketing department. So I went over to G Unit Records. I did interning for, I want to say, about 6 months, and I knew that I was working two jobs at the same time, and just to make ends meet because they would only provide me with transportation money. And then I got hired full time as like an office assistant. Then shortly after that, I got my first project. Then within all the chaos of being at G Unit, I did so many different jobs. Like I worked at radio with DJ Who Kid at Shade 45 Sirius XM. I worked on his publication. I was the senior editor of the magazine. And mind you, like some of these things I had no idea going into it what I was doing, but I would just figure it out. And I think that's something that's extremely important nowadays because I think early on in our lives, or as young as you guys are, and not to call you guys kids, but you have either a fear of going into something or you just throw yourself into it. Like there's no balance, right? So when I did it, it was like, yo, I'm just gonna do it and figure it out. And there was no research back then that I could go into and try to figure out, all right, what does this mean? So I was like a liaison at Shade 45 between label artists and the radio department. So I gave myself that title because nobody gave me a title, and I used to do everything. Like we interviewed tons of people at that show to the point where we had one of the highest um, listened to radio shows on Sirius XM, which allowed and gave Hookah the opportunity to further grow his brand. And then I studied at G Unit for years. I was there for about 10, 12 years. It's a blur at this point because there was so much stuff going on. So that's what kept me motivated to be there and helped me develop a lot of relationships that I still have now. So that's where it's like, all right, cool. Then I was like at a point where you get comfortable, right? At 10 years in a job, I think is too long. Like I've been here for so long. I've never put my resume out there. I've never looked to get another job. And then I started doing odd jobs. So a friend of mine owns a agency, a marketing agency, and I worked on campaigns with him for like a year. And then another friend of mine owned another marketing agency, and I worked with him. So I was doing like two different activations at the same time or multiple activations throughout that year and a half. And then lo and behold, I'm like, I don't want to do music anymore. So I was completely like I was disconnected for like a year and a half. I didn't know what records were coming out. I didn't know who the hottest new artists were, anything like that. So it was just like, yo, I don't want to do music. Like, and then I get a call, and the call that I get is from the first boss that left. So the one that left and I had to leave Interscope, he gives me a call and is like, yo, I got a position for you. And I go, oh no, the music industry is calling me back.
It's your sign.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, like I needed health insurance. My daughter needed health insurance. Like, my wife needed health insurance. I needed a 401k plan. I know as I'm getting older, I needed to have some type of financial foundation, which I wasn't preparing myself for. So my advice to you guys is just build a financial foundation, even going out of college, where you're saving a good amount of money just to see it grow and invest into it, even if it's your own 401k plan or your own type of program that you put money aside for. Because I think at this point, if I was doing it back then as frequent and as often as I am doing it now, I'll be in a very, very good financial state. So I get a call back. I go interview and I don't get the job. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like for me. So then shortly after, he's like, yo, another position opened up. I want you to come back for the interview. I was like, oh my God, why are you doing this to me? So then I get the job. I stay there for over a year or about a year, I want to say. And it became my boot camp. Like it honestly helped me so much because I was so disconnected, like I had mentioned, from the music industry that even the terms and terminology for certain things had changed, and the way that marketing was done became such a digital space that you had to dive into multiple sectors in order for you to even understand what marketing was. So Def Jam was a blessing for me to be where I'm at now. You know, it was hard at first, me associating myself with understanding what these nuances were and what these new things were and how to market artists properly at this time frame, because that year and a half things completely changed. Like it was like day and night just to even see that. But afterwards my boss leaves again. So then he leaves again, and I'm like, oh, great. I had put out one project every month that I was at Def Jam. So as soon as I started, I had put out at least a single or EP or album for the duration that I was there. So I think I did 7 projects overall. I got my first Grammy nominated project.
Nice.
Yeah, I think my first #1 rap album ever. So it was like, yo, like this is amazing. Like you're like on a high. Like, yo, I got a #1 rap album, I got a Grammy nominated album. Even if we don't win, like these are accolades that you take personal because you're a part of that rollout. You're a part of making sure that the managers communicate well with the label. You're making sure that you're staying on top of the managers to deliver certain things. you're reiterating information. So as a product manager, I think that's what people tend not to understand. And I'm even getting a better understanding of it myself now, is that we as product managers or internal managers, as I like to call them, are that. We are the liaison. We are the individual in the building that tries to move the project along for the artists and the managers. So I think that's where people think like product is just a physical CD or
Mhm.
nowadays a digital CD, right? Or a digital album. Sorry, it's not just that. It's like what goes on in the background to even get the artist to have that project come out.
Mhm.
So then shortly after, I get a call from some lady at a label, and she goes, "Yeah, somebody recommended me to you. Do you have time to do a call with me for a position?" And I'm like, what? I'm so confused, right? So then I hit my phone and was like, "Yo, bro, did you recommend me for a position?" It was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you." And I'm like, "Oh my god." So now I'm at a crossroad in my life where I'm like, do I leave Def Jam when I'm still understanding the new process, or do I stay here a little bit longer and see where I can go? But I
Mhm.
didn't see myself growing within the company because there was few people ahead of me that I felt deserved a promotion, right? And that's like me saying I will always take the back seat if I feel somebody else deserves it before I do. Because what people don't
Mhm.
understand is the psychology of what goes into work too, right? You
Mhm.
think about it, like you come in as the new kid, you get the promotion, and I've been here 4 or 5 years, and I've never even been looked or considered for that type of position. Like,
Mhm.
what separated you from me when I've done more work than you have? And that creates like animosity in a workspace where um, product managers and people that are working within the department start feeling a certain way, and you don't want that type of energy, especially with the way that we were. Like we were so close.
Right.
Yeah, it was so cool. Like we were all like kick it. We would go out, hang out. Like we know each other's families. Like we would be invited to birthdays within that short period of time. We became like a unit, you know.
Mhm.
So it was a beautiful thing to see, and then you feel a certain way when your peers get overlooked. Like to me, that wasn't cool. So
Right.
anyway, she tells me it's her name is Gabby Peluso, by the way, my GM now. So she's like, "Can you interview for this on this date?" And I'm like, "All right, cool, I'll do it, not a problem." So she interviews me on a Friday, I remember, and then she's like, "I need you to make a decision by Monday." I was like, "Oh
Oh
my
my gosh.
god." So I'm on the phone with my former boss, and he's like, "Yo, you have to do the pros and cons and weigh what your best options are." And I did it with him. I did it with my wife. I did it with like as many people that would listen to me to see what I was going through, because it was another crossroad where it was like a difficult moment in understanding what I wanted to do next. And then I made the decision to move over, and I've been there since 2 years now, 2+ years now. We're a small record label that's growing in the Warner system. We get support from Atlantic as well, and we're now expanding. We are growing, not exponentially, but we're sustaining and meeting the expectations and going above and beyond. We're a very small team compared to major labels, but we get the job done. And we're just like I love my team. Like we
Mhm.
people have been, interchange. Some people leave, some people come, but I love my boss. She's amazing, and I don't see myself leaving there or not being there for a while too.
Nice. So I think one of the major takeaways I could take from that is there's a desire, I think, of like you said, us younger kids today to grab a position so we could put it on our resume. And you kind of took some step backs and you were like, maybe this is not right for the time. And at the same time, we're really hesitant to go into jobs where, I mean, I heard this one thing once that was like the best part of interning is finding out what you don't like. And you were able to go into all different careers, radio, project management, public relations, and you really narrowed in on marketing. So how do you feel those internships that you had and those prior jobs you had, whether or IT, like you mentioned too, where maybe it wasn't exactly what you wanted to do, actually wound up contributing to your success in marketing?
Yeah, I mean it was the creative space, right? Like I always wanted to be in the creative space. I thought IT would do it for me because what you're taught in school is a lot different than what is actually implemented in the workspace. Like even though IT sounds like you're just plugging in computers, in the school system, it was completely different. You actually create programs and do all these other things. And that to me was cool. Like, yo, I'm creating interfaces for cookie companies at this point. And all these other things is like that's cool. Like I get to be creative and show little of myself into what buttons they're gonna click and how they're gonna click it. And then it was like I know that I've always been a creative. My wife will always attest to this, and she just thinks like I'm a marketing specialist, and I'm like I'm not. She called marketing genius. She's right here. She just corrected me. So, so I think for me, I just think that I come up with ideas off the fly in a group discussion or just based on what's given to me.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it's hard to implement those things because sometimes you get so involved into these projects that you don't disconnect yourself and you don't see anything else but what's going on at the moment. So my internships definitely allowed me to pick and choose what I wanted to do, right? Was I gonna stay doing radio? I personally loved being on radio. I
Mhm.
I was a part-time host, like I would speak here and there. It was fun, like it was just an entertaining time. It was just you reach a point where you're doing this for free for so long that if you're
Yep.
not being compensated, you don't want to do it anymore. And I did 5 years of radio, met some amazing people. I got to travel with 50 Cent. Like who
Mhm.
say they sat floor seats with 50 Cent? Like these are the type of things that as you reflect back, you're like, yo, these were great things that I did with my life. And I tend to take those things for granted every now and then, but conversations like this help me reflect on it and see that, yo, you done some really dope stuff. Now what's next? And those internships gave me the opportunity to say, look, I like marketing. I want to find my way and niche into this marketing position. Let me continue to do it.
So then, after leaving jobs at SiriusXM, POW Magazine, Interscope Records, like you mentioned, you were on air for a while, sitting with 50 Cent on the floor. You eventually rose up to senior director of marketing at Asylum. So, can you describe to us some of the basic roles and responsibilities of your job? What does a normal day in the life look like for you?
Yeah, so this is gonna sound horrible, and I think I've mentioned this to you guys. Is that like we're like the internal babysitters,
Mm,
and like managers are the one-on-one babysitters. We're the internal babysitters, and we just make sure that the project works. Like the best way that it's been described to me is like you're the quarterback, right? So you're the quarterback of the team, and you make sure that everybody's playing their position and is running their routes properly. So if I need a digital department to give me a digital marketing campaign, I get that. Like if I need to provide the publicity team with information for an upcoming release, or they need to give me a bio, I have to stay consistently following up just to make sure that those things get done. We also do outreaches for brands, seeing if there's some type of synergy between the artist and the brands that you reach out to and painting that picture for them. Because before it was a point where I remember they used to say, look, I have this artist, they love this brand, they can do XYZ, and that's it, right? Now, no, you have to paint the full campaign of what this is gonna look like for the company that you're pitching it to. So it's like you're doing pretty much your job, yes, as a marketer, but now you're telling them like, look, this is how I envision this working. So it's been a road of growth because marketing itself and product management, you have the ability to be a part of tons of other companies and still do the same type of work, if not more. When I was doing agency work as a marketer and as a creative, it was like, look, I put my usage of being organized and being detailed and reaching out to people and staying connected with people and having formal and informal conversations just to create some type of relationship there. Like I remember when we did a Coca-Cola campaign for the Puerto Rican Day Parade, and I reached out to a team in China to send us over some ice tricycle boxes, and I was on the phone with these people and texting and emailing with them at 3 o'clock in the morning just to make sure that we got that done. And
Mhm.
it's like half the cost, and nobody else is gonna do it. So I gotta figure out and do it. That's
Mhm.
what marketing and product management is to me. It's like if no one else can do it, you figure it out and you make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you could supplement and step in if they can't. So it's like a quarterback when the play is broken, you gotta run yourself. I'm gonna run it myself.
That's funny that you mentioned it's really like a 24/7 job, I can imagine. And I saw on your Instagram bio you say marketing is life. And I mean, I don't know if you put that in there to kind of be like funny, describe your job role, but is there a part of you that believes that really like marketing is like controlling our lives and is really like how businesses and artists, for example, are existing is through marketing? Could you speak on that quote a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll be completely transparent with that. I think marketing, psychology and marketing go hand in hand. I
Mm,
think psychology is one of the most important classes that you can take in any school or outside of school. It's something that I'm going to start looking into myself just to continuously grow my education because now I'm focused on growing myself as an individual.
mm,
So when I say marketing life is like you look at anything and everything that you're looking at, right? And everything has a marketable component, and there's always a reason as to why it's being done. From political campaigns, of course, more than anything, those are all marketing campaigns that take place. If you think about marketing is what marketing is a part of, right? Marketing consists of publicity, digital marketing, commerce. All that comes from marketing. You can never take that apart or away from the actual umbrella. Marketing is at the top and everything else falls into place for marketing because those things have to happen with someone dictating when it should be done and how it should be done. So now you take into account this new metal rod that's appearing at all these places now, right? And it sounds so weird, right? But it's like I'm looking at this and it's in one place one day. The first time, cool, I got it. Could have been a UFO, could have been some whatever. And then it leaves and then it appears at another place. So I'm like, at this point, this is marketing. We just now have to figure out what this product is that someone is marketing. And when we figure that out, we'll see like, oh, that was marketing. Even to
mm.
conversations that artists say or anything that they mention, like all that is marketing of the music. Like it's a way of life, and it will always be present. Like even when you like I started watching a ton of like old shows. So I watch Mad Men, even though it's not an old show, it takes place years ago, right? And you see some of these brands and some of these terms and some of these things that they came up with are still a part of what we do today and how it's done. Like you could say that a lot of industries have died in the media space, like ad buys are going down,
Mhm.
billboards are going down, but those things are still important. Like an artist with a billboard is one of the biggest things. Like they'll be like, yo, I got my own billboard. Like I never understood like how important it is for some of these guys. And
Yeah.
those billboards cost hundreds and thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
And it's just like one physical location where now people that pass see it, pay attention to it, or they don't. It's still important. Like there's importance in a lot of these things, and now it's just how do we market instead of it just being in one place for it to reach multiple people at the same time. So even though this billboard is on Times Square, we have to make sure that everybody knows that this billboard is there.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
yeah, it's that realm. So definitely, like to me, I think marketing is life. Like there's like there's no other way around it.
Right. You spoke a little bit before about brand promotions with artists. So I was wondering if you could tell our listeners who are some of the artists that you worked on marketing campaigns with.
Oof. So 2 Chains at the well, I'll start at G Unit. 50 Cent, Lloyd Banks, Young Buck, Who Kid, Tony Yayo. We had an artist named Hot Rod. We had Paulie D, who was part of the EDM space. Um, those are artists that I worked with. Then brands that I worked with at the label were Power, anything movie related that he would put out, the FN Vodka, G Unit Radio, which was a brand of G Unit, Power Magazine, which was Who Kids magazine, um, And yeah, that was it on that end. So anything music related, I would do everything for the artist after we left Interscope. Then at Def Jam, I had 2 Chainz, Designer, Jeezy, um, Pusha. That was my Grammy nominated album.
Nice.
And I had I have it Fetty Luciano, and yeah, those are like my artists. Like, you get so attached to these guys, and it's so disgusting because no, it is.
Say
It's like
that.
your kids. It's so bad. Like, you don't understand. Like, some of these guys call you. Like, I had one artist last night call me to tell me that he's coming to New York because he wants to link up, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
And then he's calling me all day. Yo, I'm here. Let's link up. Because
And
he's
you're
from
like, I want to sleep.
no, and I love these guys because like you feel so attached to the music and you want to see them win. Like, what people don't understand is that a lot of artists in the urban space have it really hard.
Mhm.
Like, this is their only way out. So for me, not being an activist as much as I want to be, I say I give back in the way of making sure that my artists have the best opportunity to be great and leave the environment that they're in and
Mhm.
give back to where they came from.
That's really nice.
So that's how I contribute to Black Lives Matter at this point. Like,
Mhm.
outside of me protesting and just being involved and being aware, like, I want to be able to help these artists grow and become sub like their own thing, like their own brand, like be themselves.
What do you feel is the most challenging, and then what is the most rewarding part of your job?
The most rewarding, I'll start there, is the success of the artist and the music, right? You want to make sure that you you put in a full effort and you make sure that you give the best opportunity for the artist and the music to succeed. I think seeing that is personal accomplishments for the label, for us at the label, and also for the artists themselves. Like, the hard part is motivating people, like motivating people now, especially in this environment, to be in front of a computer for as many hours just to make sure that they're working, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, that you're following up, that this is getting paid out, that we're going to start this campaign on this date, just because you want to make sure that, again, the artist has the best opportunity possible going into his or her project. That was the shortest answer I gave.
So we have a lot to talk about music marketing with the ongoing pandemic. So I think with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's safe to say that your role in music marketing has been greatly affected, like all industries in the current financial crisis. So can you speak on your experiences with keeping the marketing department afloat at Asylum despite the ongoing issue?
Yes. So initially, that was a up in the air scramble. Let's see what we get done question.
Mhm.
Because no one knew that this was going to happen. Yeah, we've been working with streaming services to make sure that artists are visible and all this stuff. We never thought that we would solely depend on streaming services to carry the weight of
Mm.
live performances, right? So that
Right.
was a huge pivot. Like, I remember this document going around at the company where it was a slew of ideas, like, yo, let's tap into this, let's tap into that. And then you had our partners like Instagram, Facebook, and all these people, YouTube, coming up with tons of ideas just for us to pitch our artists and make sure that they're still visible and all these stuff and all these things. But I feel like as we're winding down the year, we're now getting comfortable with the spaces that we're in and what we're gonna do to market these artists. And that consists of mostly making sure that you have the right visibility. It's hard for us coming from a smaller label to get the proper attention and the proper push, but we do our best just to make sure that we are ahead of the timing. And by the timing, I mean the timing of release, to make sure that the artist gets as much visibility as possible. So those are the type of things where, like, we've pivoted um, from then till now, and we're now falling into a more of a groove, and that
Mhm.
groove includes like making sure that you pitch out early, making sure that you have a visual component attached to everything that you release, because we've known that we also lived in a space where visuals take lead, but now we know the importance of making sure there's a visual attached to everything that's released. Um, And those are just along some of the small things, but definitely just having everything in place prior to having anything come out. That's been, I think, the most important thing on the marketing, digital, publicity, commerce side, you name it. That's how we've been operating and moving forward.
Mm. So, with the virus negatively impacting facets of the industry, such as touring, and you, like you said, it was interesting that you had to tap into then recording, which is not like a main source of revenue for artists. I mean, they really depend on their touring revenues more. So marketing is an interesting one, as so much of music marketing today exists in digital forms. So do you think an increase of digital marketing can become oversaturated in today's digital world? And how can artists really stand out when like every artist is doing a live stream and every artist is making content for TikTok? And we've seen an increase of that with the ongoing pandemic, with artists not being able to tour. So how can they really stand out and be unique in this time?
I don't think the issue is for them to stand out. I think it's for them to grow within their market, right?
Mhm.
Grow their brand with consistent eyeballs coming to them. You can't stand out much when you have major artists that are pumping hundreds and thousands of dollars into the digital space, and you are just like barely putting up thousands of dollars to help promote yourself. So you want to grow and hit certain plateaus where you're like, yo, we put out this video, this song is doing way better than it was. This song is doing performing way better than our previous songs, and we've spent X amount of dollars just to make sure that it's visible in
Mhm.
places. Like again with developing acts, and I've had budgets where you compare your developing act budget to a major label budget, and there's a huge difference. Like I can't compete with a 2 Chainz budget.
Right.
So I know in my mind that I'm not even there to compete with them. I'm there just to be seen. And the being seen component comes from um me marketing to the talent that's already following me, or the followers that I already have, and making sure that they know that this is coming, and garnering and gathering some new ones here and there, making sure there's visibility on certain websites. Because again, there like I can't compete with a Drake. Like it's impossible. Like it's no way. Like I can't.
Mhm.
So that was my issue at first, because I was like coming into this position and I go, yo, how am I gonna compete with this budget with a Rihanna, a Drake, a Jeezy, a 2 Chainz, whoever you name, Jay-Z, Nas? You can't. Like my budget doesn't compare, but we have to work with what we got. And there are tons of upcoming platforms that will gladly help and hold on to whatever you can give them, because they value new content and you just reaching out. You guys did great with reaching out, trying to see if we could get some of our acts to be interviewed on your show. Like that's a huge opportunity, not just for you, for me too, because some of these guys don't get radio interviews. Like no station cares about them at
Mhm.
this point. They rather have Hot 97 would rather, of course, interview a bigger name artist, because they only have but X amount of time and X amount of hands that can actually participate into doing something like this. So
Mhm.
when you guys reach out to us, we value it. Like it's important to us. We never dismiss it. And even when my departments don't respond, like I gotta make sure that at least I respond, because I want to make sure that my artist gets some type of visibility.
Going with that, what advice would you give to someone, or maybe like an independent musician who's trying to break out in the field of music marketing, whether they are going into the business side completely, or like I said, a musician who's trying to market themselves? I think at first, like we said, we're always worried about if we're competing with budget. So, oh, I don't have enough money for this, but I want to boom, 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 put more money into it. But you talked about growth a little bit. So, what advice could you give to someone in that like kind of factor?
I get this question a lot from on my DMs, like, "Yo, what can I do to market my music and all this stuff?" It's you're not in a space where you're gonna have a standout record that everybody gravitates to, or you can. Like, we signed an artist that has 3,000 followers on his IG, and that's minimal compared to other artists that we've had before. But the kid is super talented. but you're praying for that discovery. And that's not to take away from the hope that it can happen. But in
Mhm.
order for that to happen, you just have to be consistent with your music. Find a platform that's probably gonna champion you. Like he found a great space on SoundCloud, and
Mm.
SoundCloud was a space, and I don't know what he did to make sure that his SoundCloud numbers were decent and all these things, but that's how he was discovered. Like he's a songwriter out of Atlanta, like I think it's 3 hours away from the city, so he's in a super small market where there's absolutely no visibility for him outside of his music.
Mm.
So it's like, for me, I think this day and age, it's more is about consistent music. Like have your friends support. Like that's important. I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and she was telling me that she has friends that don't even buy her product. And I'm like, that's whack. Like you have friends that should be pushing as much as you're pushing with a like, a comment, a post, a repost, just to have a wider reach of audience. Just because you have the same um, amount of friends or the same circle of friends doesn't mean that me, as also being your friend, has the same circle of friends that you have. We
Mhm.
share some common people, but I have another reach. Like you have to start where you're not just seeing the picture of, oh, I want to get signed. Like focus on your music, focus on putting content out, focus on delivering quality and not just throwing out anything. You could say that, yeah, there's artists that throw whatever out and it goes, right? But they had to get there, you know. The baby was not the baby that you see now. The
Mhm.
baby was a completely different type of artist. There's a lot of circumstances that fell in his way that became great opportunities for him to continuously push his music. But who's to say that can't happen to you? And the only way that's gonna happen is if you focus on putting music out, making sure that it's available everywhere. If you are championing a streaming platform, that streaming platform is one that you're just constantly gonna put your music on there, and people are gonna gravitate towards it.
Really interesting. And I love how you brought up that the music really has to come first. Uh,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, like A&R, we work in departments on the label, and we're like, oh, and she has this many likes though on Instagram, and we're like, does she consistently put out music though? Does she have one single out, and then she's really just kind of tried to build up her Instagram brand? So I really like how you said the music has to come first, and that like inner support team has to really come first.
Let me
Um,
tell you something. We had or I've seen, I don't even want to say we had because then I'm gonna throw myself in the hole. I've seen artists that have millions of followers and get thousands of streams. When
mhm,
you have over a million followers, if you cannot get at least 10% of those people to stream your music, it means nothing. And
right.
I'm giving you a high number because at 10%, you should easily see 100,000 streams.
Yeah. Engagement has to come.
Like then that means that the music is not connecting or that you're not seen as that. That's not who you are. So now we have to develop the whole story and telling like, yo, he's a serious artist or she's a serious artist. And you've seen it a lot with TikTok. Like a lot of these TikTokers are now becoming music artists because they feel like they can do it because they have millions of followers.
Mhm.
Like, nah, bro.
That
Like
doesn't.
it'll work because your network and reach will allow other people to listen to it, but
Mhm.
for only a period of time. Like
Right.
you see the one hit wonders or the two hit wonders, and then they disappear
It's
because
short.
you have to pump music into these things in order for it to keep going.
Mhm.
You know?
Well, those are some really, really great insights, Angel. Thank you so much. We're just about wrapped up today, but where can our listeners keep up with you and Asylum Records? If you want to drop your website or social media handles, why don't you let our listeners know?
People can follow me on Instagram at Bruce Leroy Glow without the W at the end. That's pretty much the only platform that I use. I have Facebook, but I don't even use it. But it's there. You follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very good with LinkedIn just because I feel like it's such a professional platform.
Mhm.
And that's just my name, Angel Martinez. I respond very well to people that hit me on LinkedIn. Like everyone's been extremely. I think it's still that platform where everybody goes to develop relationships and grow as an individual. Um, and then for the company, we have our websites, our social media, everything is Asylum Records, IG. We have I mean, you name it, we have it just because it's very important for branding purposes. And yeah, like we have some contests on our social media, so if anybody wants to follow it and see what's going on, how we market, I think with looking at labels, um, social medias, you should dive into the artists as well. So that's definitely important because on the marketing side, we as a label promote all of our acts, but you want to see how it's getting done. You would dive
Mhm.
into just their social media so you can see how that process came, how this single came out at this time, and how long it took for it to happen.
Right. Well, thank you so much to Angel Martinez, Senior Director of Marketing at Asylum, for coming on to the show today and giving us some key insights into the music marketing world and really the music industry as a whole. We got into so many conversations, which I loved having with you. Make sure to follow Angel on all social media properties, as well as Asylum and some of those artists he was talking about. I'm your host, Katie Egan, and you're listening to Music Biz Buzz, only here on 88.7 FM Radio Hofstra University.